let me tell you something that might sting a little, but it will also set you free. If you're constantly overthinking, overgiving, and overwaiting for a man to treat you the way you deserve, you're not in your power, you're in a pattern. And here's the truth. The second you stop chasing, stop texting first, stop wondering what he's doing or why he's pulling away, everything shifts, because the most magnetic version of you is not the one trying to convince someone to choose you. It's the one who chooses herself over and over again. That's the woman men can't resist. That's the woman who's detached, not cold, not rude, just unavailable to BS. Let's get something straight right now. Detachment does not mean you don't care. It doesn't mean you're cold. It doesn't mean you're heartless or unbothered. It means you've finally realized your worth is not up for negotiation. It means you're done investing energy into people who treat your presence like it's an option instead of the gift that it is. See, most people think detachment is about walking away from someone, but it's actually about returning to yourself. Let's talk about what happens when a woman detaches, not when she pretends she's over it. Not when she plays a game, but when she truly, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually lets go of trying to control the outcome. That woman becomes untouchable, not in a way that pushes love away, but in a way that demands real love to show up correctly or not show up at all. Because when a woman stops over-explaining, when she stops trying to prove she's good enough to be chosen, when she stops shrinking herself into someone else's preferences, something incredible happens. She taps into her power. And trust me when I say, men feel that shift. It's like a light switches off for them, and on for you. The energy changes. You're no longer available for breadcrumbing. You're not sitting around wondering why the text slowed down, or why he's suddenly too busy. You've already picked up your energy and redirected it back toward your own life. You're focused on your goals, your peace, your growth, your joy. And the universe responds to that, because detachment is magnetic. It screams, I'm not waiting around to be picked. I pick myself. Here's the psychological truth. Humans are wired to notice what's missing. When you pull your energy back, not out of manipulation, but out of self-respect, people notice. They feel the absence of your effort, your attention, your emotional labor, and that silence, that calm detachment, that does more than any dramatic confrontation ever could. Because here's what most women don't realize, your attention is power. Where you place your energy is where you place your value. If you keep giving your emotional energy to someone who isn't matching it, who's confusing you, ghosting you, keeping you in the gray zone, you're teaching them how to treat you. But when you detach, when you stop explaining yourself, when you let your silence be your boundary, everything shifts. You stop being reactive and you start being intentional. You stop hoping and you start observing. You realize that you don't need anyone to validate what you already know, that you are worthy of consistency, of effort, of clarity, and that realization isn't loud, it's not aggressive, it's quiet, it's calm. It's unshakable. That's why detachment is power, because you no longer need the relationship to feel whole. You're not desperate for an outcome. You're not tied to the version of the story where they finally wake up and treat you right. You're simply present with what is, and if what is doesn't honor you, you move on. Period. Let me tell you something. When a woman reclaims her emotional independence, she becomes a force. She no longer plays small. She doesn't chase, convince, or settle. She's not performing for love. She's radiating it from within, and that shift, that energy, that's what men can't resist. Not because you're trying to be irresistible, but because you've become undeniable. And this is where the magic happens, because men aren't drawn to the woman who's begging for crumbs. They're drawn to the one who's so in alignment with herself that anyone who doesn't treat her with respect can't even get close. You see, detachment isn't about cutting people off with bitterness. It's about letting go with peace. It's about knowing that your peace is worth more than temporary attention. It's about valuing your own emotional state more than someone else's potential. It's about refusing to overinvest in situations that underdeliver, and when you truly embrace detachment, you stop seeing rejection as a loss, you see it as redirection, you stop seeing silence as punishment. You see it as protection. You stop romanticizing mixed signals and start valuing clear intentions. You become the kind of woman who doesn't ask, "Why didn't he pick me?" You ask, "Why was I even considering someone who made me question my value in the first place?" And that's where the healing begins. That's where the growth begins. That's where the confidence builds. Not because someone gave it to you, but because you gave yourself permission to stop begging for what you already deserve. So if you're sitting there, heart in pieces, wondering why pulling back feels so hard, remind yourself, you're not letting go to hurt them. You're letting go to heal you. You're not detaching because you don't care. You're detaching because you finally do about your peace, your power, and your potential. You are not here to prove your worth. You're here to live it. And the moment you start living like you believe that, that's the moment the game changes. That's the moment they feel your absence, not as punishment, but as a consequence of their inability to rise to your standard, and you're not waiting anymore, you're walking forward. Detached, empowered, unbothered. If there's one truth every woman needs to understand, it's this. Men aren't attracted to your sacrifices, your endless patience, or how much you tolerate. They're not pulled in by how much you bend or mold yourself to fit their life. They're pulled in by something far stronger, far more magnetic, your self-respect. You want to know what stops a man in his tracks, a woman who knows exactly who she is, exactly what she brings to the table, and exactly what she will, and will not tolerate. A woman who doesn't second, guess her boundaries, a woman who doesn't chase clarity from people who deliver confusion, a woman who isn't afraid to say no, this doesn't work for me, or even I'm walking away. That woman, she becomes unforgettable, not because she played a game, but because she refused to play herself. You see, self-respect isn't loud. It's not about being combative or defensive. It's quiet. It's steady. It's a calm knowing that you are not here to audition for a place in someone's life. You are the director, you are the selector, and that changes everything, because when a woman starts respecting herself, she sets a tone. And here's what most people don't realize. Men read energy more than they respond to words. You don't have to explain over and over again what you want. You just have to embody it. Your self-respect becomes the filter. It either pulls people in who match it, or it pushes away those who can't rise to meet it, and both outcomes are a win. Now, let's talk about how this works in real life. When you respect yourself, you don't panic when someone pulls away. You don't spiral when a man goes quiet or inconsistent. Why? Because you're not sitting there thinking, "What's wrong with me?" You're thinking, "That energy doesn't align with where I'm going." You stop making excuses for poor treatment. You stop romanticizing potential. You stop convincing yourself that maybe he's just busy, or maybe I'm expecting too much. You start telling yourself the truth. You start recognizing that someone who wants you will show up. And someone who values you won't put you in a position to question your worth. And that shift in your mindset, that's the difference between being anxious and being aligned. Men feel that. They feel the difference between a woman who's grounded in herself and one who's trying to earn affection. One is magnetic, the other is exhausting. One pulls respect out of a man, the other enables complacency. Let me make something clear. A man might be attracted to your beauty. He might enjoy your company. He might even like spending time with you. But if you don't respect yourself, that attraction fades, because no one, and I mean no one, values what comes too easily. That's not cruelty, it's human psychology. People value what they have to rise for. They value what makes them reflect. They value what forces them to step into their best, and a woman who respects herself does that by default. She's not demanding. She's not trying to control. She just won't tolerate nonsense, and that creates polarity. You see, it's not about playing hard to get. It's about being hard to forget, because you stood firm in your standards. You didn't beg for the bare minimum. You didn't compete for someone's attention. You simply held your space and let the wrong ones fall away. And guess what? The right man, he's watching. He's listening. He sees how you carry yourself. He sees how you move when you're disappointed, how you handle being ignored, how you walk when things don't align, and if he's the right one. He respects the hell out of that. Not because you threatened him, but because you inspired him to step up. You don't need to perform to be loved. You don't need to overextend, overgive, or prove yourself. Love isn't earned through depletion. It's matched through energy. When you finally understand that, you stop settling for men who kind of like you. You stop making room for maybe. You stop clinging to potential. You only entertain people who come correct, because you're not afraid to be alone while you wait. And that, right there, is what men can't resist. Not because you're trying to manipulate anyone, not because you're playing some dating tactic, but because your self-respect sends a signal, I'm not available for anything less than real. When you respect yourself, your energy shifts. You stop asking, does he like me? And start asking, do I even like the way he's showing up? You stop being available for men who text at midnight, who cancel last minute, who give you just enough to stay confused but never enough to feel secure. That kind of behavior doesn't shake you anymore. You see through it, you rise above it, you don't punish it. You just stop entertaining it, and that's the most powerful move you can make. Let them wonder why you're no longer available. Let them feel the space where your energy used to be. Let them realize too late that they were in the presence of a woman who doesn't beg to be treated right. She expects it, and if they can't deliver, she doesn't throw a fit. She walks away with grace. So if you want to change the way men treat you, you don't need to be prettier. You don't need to be quieter or more agreeable. You need to be rooted in your worth. You need to respect yourself so fiercely that anyone who doesn't gets naturally pushed out. That's the secret. That's the shift, and once you make it, you'll never chase again, because real love doesn't come to those who wait. Let's talk about what really happens when you stop waiting for the emotionally unavailable man to get it together. Let's talk about what shifts, not just in him, but in you, when you finally let go of the fantasy and deal with the reality. Because here's the truth that no one wants to say out loud. The moment you stop sitting on the emotional sidelines, hoping he changes, hoping he wakes up, hoping he suddenly gives you the love you've been pouring into him, that's the moment everything changes. You see, emotionally unavailable men are masters of inconsistency. One day, they're warm, they open up, tell you things they've never told anyone, you feel special, seen, chosen. The next day, ice cold. Dry replies, unread messages, suddenly busy, and you start wondering if it was all in your head. You replay every conversation, every touch, every moment, trying to decode the shift. You blame yourself. Maybe I came on too strong. Maybe I said something wrong. Maybe I'm asking for too much. No, you're not asking for too much. You're asking the wrong person. Emotionally unavailable men thrive on being chased. On you trying to figure them out, on you proving that you're the one who can unlock their heart. You become addicted to the hope that one day they'll choose you fully, but here's the problem, they won't, not as long as you're still standing there, waiting. The second you stop waiting, though, that's when their world starts to shake. Why? Because their power over you wasn't in how much they gave. It was in how much you kept hoping they would. You were the one carrying the emotional load. You were the one showing up, texting first, asking how they're doing, initiating plans, tolerating silence, forgiving without real change, and now you're done. You're not bitter, you're not angry, you're just done. You see, emotionally unavailable men are used to women staying too long. They're used to half, love being enough. They're used to women thinking, if I just love him harder, he'll come around. But what they are not used to? A woman who no longer waits. A woman who sees the pattern and refuses to play the role anymore. A woman who doesn't chase silence. A woman who doesn't spin her worth around mixed signals. And when that happens, when you pull back not to teach him a lesson but to teach yourself a boundary, he feels the shift. He loses the one thing he depended on, your emotional presence. See, you were the one feeding the connection. You were the one pouring energy into it. Without that, there's nothing left for him to sit in. It gets quiet, and that quiet, that's where the panic sets in for him. Not because he suddenly grew the emotional depth to love you right, but because he lost control of something he never thought he'd lose, your attention. But here's the part that matters more. You don't care anymore. You've already started focusing on yourself. You've already started healing, reading the signs, owning your standards. You're not checking your phone every 10 minutes anymore. You're not waiting for his name to pop up. You're not calculating how to respond or wondering if he's finally ready. You're too busy growing. That's what detachment from emotionally unavailable men looks like. Peace, finally, because you stop trying to rescue someone who didn't even ask to be saved. You stop writing love stories where you're the only one holding the pen. And you realize, maybe for the first time, that it was never your job to turn a maybe into a yes. Let me be clear about something. Emotionally unavailable men don't suddenly become available when you detach. They become uncomfortable. That's not love, it's ego, it's control. It's the disruption of a dynamic where they called the shots and you responded, where they were hot and cold and you danced to match the temperature. But now you're out of the game. You've stopped trying to decode the silence. You've stopped romanticizing crumbs. You've started asking yourself the hard questions. Why was I waiting in the first place? Why was I hoping for someone to choose me when I hadn't fully chosen myself? And that awareness, that's what keeps you out of that cycle. Because you're not here to be someone's emotional rehab. You're not here to wait while someone sorts through their fear of intimacy. You're not here to prove you're the safe one, the patient one, the one who understands. You're here to receive real love, and that starts the moment you stop settling for half of it. So yes, emotionally unavailable men lose their grip when you detach. But more importantly, you gain yourself back. You remember who you were before the confusion, before the guessing games, before the nights you stayed awake wondering what you did wrong. And when you come back to yourself like that, when you reclaim your worth, your standards, your peace, you stop even wanting what you used to wait for, because you now see clearly emotional availability is not a bonus. It's the bare minimum. The real shift is not in whether or not he reaches out when you walk away. The real shift is that you don't care if he does. You've outgrown the need for someone to finally realize what they had. You've grown into the knowing that the right person won't need to lose you to see your value, so let him feel the loss, let him sit in the silence he created, let him wonder why the dynamic changed. But you don't need to explain, you don't need to prove, you don't need to go back, because the moment you stop waiting is the moment you start rising, and that's the version of you he never saw coming, and the one you were always meant to become. Let's get brutally honest for a second. If you're constantly the one texting first, initiating the plans, keeping the connection alive, and always wondering where you stand with him, then you're not in a relationship, you're in a performance. And the moment you detach, the moment you stop chasing, stop explaining, stop overfunctioning, the entire power dynamic flips, because here's what most people don't understand. Power isn't control. Power isn't who talks louder or who plays games better. Real power is emotional clarity. It's self-possession. It's the ability to walk away from anything that does not serve, support, or elevate you. When you're attached to someone who gives you inconsistency, breadcrumbs, or half love, you surrender your power every time you choose their potential over your peace. You hand it over in pieces. When you overanalyze a text, when you accept less than you deserve, when you silence your needs because you're afraid of pushing them away. But detachment says, I don't need to wait for someone to realize my worth. I already know it. And once you operate from that place, everything, and I mean everything, shifts. See, most of us are raised to think that if we just love hard enough, if we're patient enough, if we're understanding enough, we'll earn the relationship we want. But love isn't something you earn. You don't have to exhaust yourself into being worthy. The right connection doesn't require you to suffer to be seen. So when you detach, not with bitterness, not with resentment, but with clarity, you stop playing the game. You stop participating in the imbalance. You stop giving someone the power to affect your mood, your energy, your day, and that detachment, it's felt. The man who is used to being chased suddenly has to sit with the silence he created. The one who gave you just enough to stay confused doesn't have access to your energy anymore. The dynamic where you were always leaning in flips, and now he has to lean in, or lose you. But here's the thing, when you truly detach, you don't even care whether he leans in or not. Because you're no longer seeking validation, you're grounded, you've turned inward, you've recentered your focus, and that's when your power returns. It's not about punishing anyone. It's not about playing hard to get. It's about being hard to shake, because your sense of self is no longer dependent on external reassurance. You've taken your emotional energy out of their hands and placed it firmly back into your own. And here's the kicker. People treat you differently when they sense that. They approach with more respect, more care, more intention, because they can feel when someone has boundaries that aren't just spoken. They are embodied. You don't need to tell them what you'll tolerate. They can feel what you won't entertain. That's what flips the power dynamic. Not anger, not silence as a weapon, but silence as a boundary. The kind that says, I don't chase, I align, and if you can't meet me here, I'm not coming down to meet you where I used to. Men feel that shift on a visceral level, because emotional energy is currency. And when you've been the one pouring it in consistently, it's been feeding the entire dynamic. Once you stop, the structure starts to crumble. Now they have to feel the void you once filled. Now they have to sit with their choices. Now they have to decide whether they're going to step up or step out, and either way, you win, because you're not waiting for the answer anymore. You're no longer on standby for the maybe. You're done accepting closeness only when it's convenient for them. You've realized that love should feel safe, not suspenseful, and let's be clear, detachment isn't about withdrawing from love. It's about removing your energy from anything that doesn't return it with equal value. It's about stepping into your feminine power, your intuition, your self-trust. That energy is calm, steady, rooted. It's not reactive, needy, or performative. That's why it flips the script. Because when a man expects you to keep showing up no matter how he treats you, and suddenly you stop, he's left with a mirror, and he'll do one of two things: step into the reflection and grow, or retreat because he can't meet you there. And you don't try to control either outcome. You've let go of the obsession with potential. You've stopped being the emotional caretaker. You've broken the habit of self-abandonment in exchange for closeness. You no longer make decisions out of fear. Fear of losing them, fear of being alone, fear of being misunderstood. You make decisions from alignment now, from self-respect, from knowing that if something costs you your peace, it's too expensive. And when you live like that, the dynamic changes not only in your relationships, but in your entire life. Because now you're attracting from power, not pain, from clarity, not chaos, from fullness, not fear. People will notice the shift, especially those who benefited from your confusion, but you're not responsible for their discomfort. You're responsible for your growth, and growth requires you to outgrow your role in unbalanced relationships. So if you've ever felt like the powerless one in the connection, let this be the reminder: you were never powerless. You were just overly invested in proving your value to someone who didn't have the capacity to hold it. The moment you detach is the moment you reclaim your energy. The moment you stop begging is the moment you start building. The moment you flip the dynamic is the moment you stop wondering if you're enough, because you finally remember you always were. And now you don't just know it, there's a moment, silent, powerful, when you finally let go, not out of spite, not as a strategy, but because you're done. You're done trying to convince someone to value you. You're done trying to prove that you're enough. You're done waiting for mixed signals to turn into clarity. And in that moment, without even realizing it, you become unforgettable. See, people remember the energy that used to chase them, especially when it stops. When a woman who used to show up no matter what, who used to forgive over and over, who used to wait patiently for scraps of effort, suddenly doesn't anymore, it creates a silence that echoes, and that echo. It lingers because detachment doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop participating in your own disrespect. It means you stop handing your value to someone who didn't know what to do with it. It means you stop giving the best of yourself to someone who only gave you their bare minimum. And the moment you do that, when your energy pulls back, your boundaries lock in, and your peace becomes your priority, that's when your presence becomes imprinted. It's not the woman who chased that gets remembered. It's the woman who walked not angrily, not bitterly, but gracefully, quietly, firmly. She didn't slam the door. She simply stopped knocking. That kind of exit. It's rare, that kind of self-possession. That's magnetic, because we live in a world where everyone is trying to hold on, to be chosen, to fix, to prove, but the one who lets go with love, with clarity, with strength. She stands out because she wasn't playing a game. She wasn't trying to manipulate the outcome. She just realized that her worth didn't live in someone else's recognition. It lived in her decision. Detachment is not indifference. You still feel, you still love, but you love yourself more. And when that becomes your foundation, you're not easily shaken. You don't react to inconsistency. You don't respond to crumbs. You don't break down when someone pulls away. You just observe and you choose accordingly. That ability to choose, to say no to what doesn't align, to stop chasing what isn't clear, to walk away from what isn't mutual, that's what makes you unforgettable. Not because you were dramatic, not because you made a scene, but because you left with your dignity intact. And the people who once took your energy for granted, they'll notice. They'll remember the way you showed up. The way you loved, the way you gave them chance after chance. They'll remember how easy it was to lean on you, how consistent your support was, how available you always were, until you weren't. That void is loud. They may not say anything, they may never admit it, but they feel it, because when someone is used to having access to you, and that access gets revoked, they're left with one thing, the memory of what they lost. And here's the best part. You're not waiting around for that moment. You're not trying to make them miss you. You've outgrown needing to be missed, because your life is no longer about who notices your absence. It's about how you show up for yourself. You start pouring into your own cup. You start rebuilding the parts of you that were stretched too thin trying to be enough. You start focusing on your goals, your growth, your healing. You stop scanning your phone. You stop overthinking. You stop apologizing for having needs, and that shift, it's not just internal. People feel it. Your energy becomes clearer, stronger. You attract different conversations, different connections, different outcomes, because you're operating from fullness, not fear. From self-respect, not desperation. From alignment, not attachment. That's what makes you unforgettable. Not your looks, not your body, not your social media, but your energy. The energy of a woman who knows what she brings, who knows what she's worth, and who refuses to entertain anything that doesn't reflect that. You don't need to be loud about it. You don't need to make a grand exit. You just stop giving your energy where it isn't valued, and the world recalibrates. The relationships that once left you confused become irrelevant. The people who kept you waiting become background noise. And the peace that once felt foreign becomes your new normal. Let them wonder where you went. Let them question what happened. Let them realize too late that they were in the presence of someone rare, someone who didn't stay where love was unclear, someone who didn't tolerate almost, someone who didn't cling to potential, someone who had the courage to choose herself, because that's the woman people remember, the one who set herself free. And here's the thing, you don't become unforgettable by being perfect. You don't get remembered for sacrificing yourself in the name of love. You get remembered for your strength, your integrity, your ability to love deeply and still walk away when that love isn't honored. So if you've ever wondered what makes a woman unforgettable, it's this: her decision to detach when her soul is being starved, her choice to protect her peace, her refusal to shrink just to fit inside someone else's indecision. That woman leaves a mark, not because she demanded attention, but because she reclaimed her power. She stopped waiting, she stopped explaining, she stopped performing, and she started living like she already knew what she was worth. And once you do that, once you detach for real, you don't lose people. You lose the ones who were never truly invested, and you gain the most important relationship of all, the one with yourself.